Good evening, everyone. I'd like to give you a warm and loving welcome to Universe Go, the podcast that gives you a casual rundown on what the hell is going on up in space. I'm your host, Vega, and I'm going to help you set your gaze to the stars. Today's episode will be talking about a project very near and dear to my heart, the new Horizons Spacecraft Project, a project that set out to map out the farthest reaches of our solar system all the way back in 2006, when I was still having trouble with my division and eating mac and cheese after school. But before we get into all that, I'd like to thank you all for joining me in the first episode of Universe Go. At the moment, this is a simple experiment to see if I can actually keep anything consistent. We'll see how this goes, and I'm hoping it goes well. There I can provide more space information in the way of a fast-talking and possibly high space host. Don't worry, it's legal in my state. So, without further ado... Okay, so this part is completely unscripted. I noticed that when I was editing this, that I didn't give a very good introduction to the series as a whole. So let me give you a little rundown of what this is. So, this is Universe Go, my very first attempt at a podcast ever. I've never done anything like this before. I mean, I had a YouTube channel when I was like 16 where I read creepypastas, but I deleted that for a reason. So, this is just going to be me, pretty much talking about space, whatever I find fascinating at the moment. I don't have any particular degree. I don't know if I even want to get a degree in it, because honestly, I'm afraid that when something becomes your job, you begin to hate it. And I don't want to ever do that with space. It's something I love too much. So, for the most part, this is just me talking about something I really like. I don't expect anybody to take me super seriously on it. I do my best to research everything, but I do admit I probably get some things wrong every now and then. Maybe I don't fact check something enough, maybe I just have a few inconsistencies. You know, it happens to the best of us. I'm only human. But, like I said, this is just me rambling about space. And I hope you all enjoy listening to some fucking nerd sitting in their bedroom just going off about something they're really interested in. But with that all being said, let's just get on to the episode, shall we? Our lovely lady New Horizon was launched out into the deep darkness of space all the way back in 2006, as I said before, sent out with a mission to explore the Kuiper Belt in a way it hasn't been explored before, flying past Pluto and visiting some of our biggest stellar objects within to gain new data on how our solar system was created. Now, let me give you a quick rundown of the Kuiper Belt for those unfamiliar with it. The Kuiper Belt is similar to the asteroid belt right behind Mars. It's just a bunch of leftovers from the universe was shiny and brand new, just barely a star with debris around it, shaped more like a super thick disk than a thin belt like a neighboring asteroid belt. And also not to be confused with the Oort cloud. As much as I'd love to get into that particular neck of space, we aren't that far quite yet, my darlings. Now you may ask, Vega, why should I care about some random asteroid belt near our solar system? Asteroids are everywhere. What could they bring that our asteroid belt hasn't? Well, let me tell you, darling. So, the Kuiper Belt is a ring of primordial objects surrounding the very far reaches of our solar system. Primordial pretty much meaning since time began. In essence, a bunch of shit from when the solar system was born. Now, why is that important, you may ask? Simple. The massive ring of rocks is the key to telling us about the very formation of our solar system. Telling us how we got here, how our planets came to be, how our very sun was born. The data we find from these asteroids can teach us all about our very origins. And that's why you should care, my darlings. I mean, why would you not? Who hasn't wondered where we came from time to time? Where we belong in all of this? Where our place is in the universe? It's Kind of fascinating, don't you think? So that's what the New Horizons spacecraft set out to do, to tell us where we came from. And our first stop, a sweet little dwarf named Pluto. Pluto, once decided as a planet, then stripped from its title to become nothing more than a dwarf planet. We all remember that massive debate, I'm sure. But I won't go into too much detail on the basics of Pluto, as I'm sure most of our middle school science teachers taught us enough about that. But a rundown of some things perhaps not taught by a science teacher. Pluto is in fact a binary planet. Two planets whose gravitational balance point sits right between them. These two planets are known as, of course, Pluto and Charon. Fitting names, as Pluto is the god of the underworld, and Charon being the ferryman who takes new souls across the river of Styx. But we aren't here for a lesson in Roman mythology. There are plenty of other podcasts for that. Now, these are incredibly common in our galaxy, as are binary stars and similar objects, but this is the first time one was ever explored. The fun thing about Pluto and Charon is, due to the orbit, their faces are always facing towards one another. To visualize it a bit, imagine two people are standing on Pluto and Charon. One person on Pluto is on the side facing away from Charon, and one person on Charon is on the side facing away from Pluto. The two people who are on those planet sides would never even know the other planet existed. They'd go about their lives not knowing of the other planet unless they travel to the other side. Pretty nifty stuff, eh? Now, during the flyby of Pluto, which may I say was an incredible success on the NH team's part, the spacecraft managed to capture close-up images of all 4 of Pluto's moons. All irregularly shaped, ranging from about 10 to 15 kilometers for the smallest moon Styx, and 50 to 65 kilometers for the largest moon Hydra. One of the smaller moons, Kerberos, seems to in fact be shaped somewhat like a peanut, suggesting that perhaps it was made when 2 bodies collided and merged together. Not to mention that, in fact, the moons are quite a bit brighter than expected, meaning they may be largely composed of water ice. However, the most shocking reveal was the fact that these moons spin rapidly. Not just in orbit, I mean they actually rotate. Most moons in our solar system don't rotate. Rather, they have one side facing their planet at all times. In fact, shockingly enough, the biggest moon Hydra seems to rotate the fastest, spinning at a rate of once every 10 hours, almost 90 times during its 38-day orbit around Pluto and Charon. We don't even know why exactly they spin, we just know they kinda do. My personal theory, which you will hear me interjecting at these every so often, is that these moons were created out of some sort of collision with Charon. This explains the strange cracks and canyons on her surface, which I will talk more about later. Perhaps these moons are simply space debris from our once violent universe trapped within Pluto's orbit and spinning rapidly with nothing to stop it. Again, however, this is my personal theory. Feel free to tell me yours. Now with this, there was also some very interesting discoveries about Charon as well. A particular find was a belt of large, jagged mountains and canyons across the encounter, the side facing Pluto. This divides the planet perfectly in half, with a cratered northern hemisphere known as Ostera, and a smoother lower lying hemisphere known as the Vulcan Planitia. This has made quite the strange surface for the planet, making strange mountains and moats and quite the variety of cracks and crinkles. But what is beauty if not imperfection, my darlings? Admittedly, Charon's surface is mostly dirty ice water, no offense to her. However, its polar regions are painted a crimson red, created from gases escaping Pluto's atmosphere, only to be captured within Charon's gravity. It is theorized that Charon and its surrounding satellites have formed in a very similar way to Earth's own moon, in the aftermath of a giant collision near the very beginning of our solar system. You must remember, the early days of our solar system were quite violent. Nasty bit of business that it was. It's not at all unlikely for something so intense to happen in such a short time. After the spectacular success that was Pluto's flyby in 2015, the sights of the New Horizons team set onto the Kuiper Belt, and eventually onto our newest space neighbor. Now, there's all sorts of cool stuff to find in the Kuiper Belt, from dwarf planets with tiny moons, some even having atmospheres, to the mysterious planet 9, which we are still looking to see if it even exists. But today we'll be focusing on a little friend barely the size of Maine, Ultima Thule. This little friend was discovered when the NH team used the observations of the Hubble telescope to find the next planetary object they'd be able to reach with the fuel the spacecraft had left, beginning our first look into what could be the discovery of a lifetime. Now, this minor planet, asteroid, she's been called a lot of things. I'm not even sure the NH team knows exactly what to call her. But Ultima Thule is what is known as a contact planet, which means rather than being shaped like a sphere, she is instead two big rocky shapes connected to each other. While these two were originally thought to be spheroid and shaped more like a snowman, it turns out the two are more flat, with Ultima, the larger lobe, shaped flat like a pancake, and Thule, the smaller lobe, being shaped like a dented walnut almost. It is thought the two fused together as early as 99% of their way into the birth of our solar system, colliding not too much faster than a car in a fender bender, according to the NH team. Now, while it may not have any moons or rings to our knowledge, her shape is very interesting, the flat pancake shape of Ultima being incredibly strange. We have never seen anything like this orbiting our sun before, and it raises many new scientific questions. How did she get this shape? What sort of spatial and gravitational events could have led to something so strange? If I may interject with my own personal theory, I believe, possibly before its collision with Thule, Ultima could have had an incredibly rapid rotation, causing it to stretch out into a flatter shape, similar to the asteroid Haumea. Perhaps at one point denser, the rotation could have even taken away some of its previous mass, flinging it out into the far reaches of space. Eventually, Ultima pulled Thule into its embrace, and into their eventual collision. But remember, this is just my theory, and I have literally no evidence to back this up. Absolutely none. We'll be getting more information on our friends soon, though, so hopefully we can get some answers. Now, backing away from how Ultima became her beautiful pancake self, the current theory on how Ultima Thule merged into one is early in the solar system's youth, a cloud of icy objects and space dust rotated around a particular point of gravity, merging together until there was two large bodies of icy rock, eventually colliding together to make our happy little space baby. Now, honestly, darlings, this is all pretty simple stuff. Nothing really groundbreaking, nothing astonishing. Just a little rock in space, floating around in a kinda weird shape. What could be so wondrous about this that it caught my attention? Well, it's rather simple. This is our first spacecraft to reach the Kuiper Belt since the Voyager spacecrafts left the heliosphere. And this is the only one set on really exploring it. The equipment on the Voyagers just wasn't made for these sorts of things. While reaching Ultima Thule is exciting, my darlings, what is truly, beautifully exciting is what we may discover. Just think of it. The Kuiper Belt has been around since the beginning of our solar system. We could find so many answers from those simple space rocks. What our sun's core is made of, how our planets formed, what began the formation of our own solar system, and thus a more solid hypothesis as to how planetary systems are formed. Not to mention the possibility of our resident mystery planet, Planet 9, and the discoveries that come with that. It's enchanting, it's mesmerizing, something that wasn't even dreamed of some 20, even 30 years ago. It's kind of amazing, don't you think? The discoveries the NH team are set to make will no doubt be groundbreaking. The mission is set to go until 2021, and we'll be learning quite a bit in the next 2 years. I would heavily suggest keeping up with this mission as best you can, and personally, I absolutely cannot wait until they tell us our next destination. After all, how can we explore the universe around us if we still don't know our own solar system? Because our Earth won't last forever, darlings. And the sooner we leave, the better. I must thank you for tuning into the first episode of Universe Go. It really does mean a lot to me that you chose to spend this time with me. If you want to learn more about the New Horizons spacecraft and the team behind it, I highly recommend going to their project website at pluto.jhuapl.edu. You can learn a lot with the information they give. And they even have a cute little interactive guide for learning more about the team involved. It's kind of adorable. And if you want to keep up with me at any point, you can follow me on Twitter at UniverseGoPod or at Vega. And a big thanks to my friend Atronox Aura on YouTube for making the intro to the podcast, as well as Cosmic Funnies for the artwork. You should definitely check out Atronox and his projects on his YouTube channel, aptly named Atronox Aura, and Cosmic Funnies' adorable space comics at cosmicfunnies.tumblr.com or at Cosmic Funnies on Patreon. That's it for tonight, my darlings. And remember to always keep your gaze towards the stars.